Through 6 generations spanning 40 years, the BMW 3 Series has become the small executive benchmark. From the crisply designed E30 of the 1980s to today's slightly plusher F30 version, they've been marketed as something dynamic and a cut above the humdrum. Indeed, they've been the mainstay of the BMW success story since the day of their conception. But what's it like to actually live with the 3 Series? And perhaps more importantly, do they really deserve their sporting saloon reputation? Not to mention their premium branding. After all, they are around in massive numbers these days. So considering that, what's the big appeal? Well, the first thing to say is, whilst it's a great car to drive, in this Common on Garden 320D spec, the truth of the matter is, it isn't a sports saloon. It's 184 horsepower and 280 foot-pounds of torque, and it's enough for brisk but not startling acceleration. A 330D, for example, would be better in terms of that pinning you back in the seat feeling we all know and crave. This, especially in the dry, it just hangs on. There's no oversteer on the menu. Understeer is also absent, but the truth of the matter is there isn't enough power to move the tail around. In the wet, yes, it'll step sideways with provocation. Doubtless the 19-inch rims and 255 tyres on this one don't help. But as I say, there isn't quite enough grunt to get the tail moving around. What is interesting though, I guess, is the inherent ability which is evident in the rest of the chassis, and it's no surprise that the latest M3 is such a capable performer. If we ignore the discussion about the noise for a moment, the balance in the chassis is very impressive. So what happens to the front happens to the rear a second or so later. The brakes are okay, not outstanding for regular road use. The steering's pretty good rate of response and very faithful. It's a very capable all-rounder. It feels thoroughly well engineered. It feels like it's been built by people who know what they're doing. It just lacks that crucial extra bit of grunt which would make it a proper sports saloon. The damping is very well resolved. The suspension is pretty quiet in its operation. In general terms, it's quite refined in here. You do get a bit of road noise. 255 tyres on 19s and coarse tarmac here on the A40 doesn't help. You also get quite a lot of wind noise from the mirrors and a rustle from the header rail, but in general terms it's just about acceptable. I guess if I was being honest, I'd like it maybe a tad quieter, but like I said, generally it's pretty good. Now, being a modern BMW, of course, you can tweak the drive and the drive characteristics via the drive components control switch. Now, I found this interesting for the first 4 or 5 months of ownership, and I played around with the settings and spent some time in each setting. Ecopro mode gives you between 55 to 60 miles per gallon on a regular basis, but it also dials back the seat heating power and also the aircon effectiveness. It also gives you a very treacle-like throttle response, which isn't very pleasant. You press the throttle for the first half of its travel, nothing happens, and you don't make very good progress, in all honesty. Comfort mode is somewhere between the two. You do at least get full seat heating capabilities, and the aircon does your bidding. But again, the engine doesn't really seem to be a willing partner in proceedings. Put it in sport, and you get much better throttle response. All the engine has to give, which isn't a lot at the end of the day. So you want it when you want it, not half an hour later. And it gives you between 45 to 50 mpg, and that's pretty much the default setting I've run the car in for the last 2.5 years. I'm running in sport now. This one runs passive suspension, not the adaptive M setup, which you can also have on these. This is running 19s with passive suspension. And in sport mode, the ride is perfectly acceptable, kind of akin to an M Sport running on 18s with the M Sport suspension. This particular car is a 320D Sport. And the Sport's important. It's distinct from M Sport. So outside, the car is not quite as shouty in terms of its front end styling. The styling's a little quieter. M Sports have more aggressive aero bumpers and so on. The Sport is a little quieter. It has black trim around the fog lights, for example, but not much else other than that. Inside, you do get a few little flashes of colour. You get the chrono style effect to the dials. You get some body colour trimming along the dashboard, the fascia. Also some red flashes to the seats. It's just enough to lift the cabin ambience. It's not excessively so. The cabin itself is a very pleasant place to be. This one is rather unremittingly black, even with the red flashes. It does show the dust somewhat, hence I've had a cloth in here since the day of delivery because it's a nightmare to keep clean. But it's a very pleasant cabin. It's standard 3 Series fare, really. It's well screwed together. This one's done 55,000 miles since it was new in 2012, and it's still pretty solid in here. There's no rattles or squeaks to speak of. It's a good, solid 4-seater. The boot's big enough, and that's I think the basic point of this car. It's a very good family option. The 320D, I mean. It isn't a sports saloon, as I mentioned earlier, but it is a very good family option. There's enough space, just about enough performance, and it's cheap enough to run as well. This one cost us on average £300 a year for servicing. One of the services was £500, which I did balk at the time, given that it is just a 3 Series, let's face facts. But when I actually do the maths, so to speak, it works out at about £300 a year for servicing. We've had oil changes, 2 of those. We've had a brake pad replacement, front and rear. No discs, the discs don't need replacing yet. It's not used any oil at all. The level doesn't seem to move at all, actually. It's not a consumer of oil, this particular car, which runs the N47, of course, 2-litre twin power turbo diesel, so not twin turbo diesel. So yeah, on the whole, it's been pretty efficient, effective motoring. Tyres cost about £180 for a corner on the rears. I use blackcircles.com. This one runs Bridgestone Potenzas, which I'm not all that keen on, to be honest. I prefer Continentals. They don't seem to help the noise levels in the cabin, the Bridgestones, but that might just be placebo. So yeah, on the whole, pretty cost-effective motoring. It does the job, but I think the problem is, and we'll come back to this in a little while, I expect a little more of a BMW. Maybe that's just me being unfair, but I wouldn't have another 320D because I can't quite get what I want out of this car, but we'll come back to that later. The other key component of the drive in this car is the manual gear shift. Now, when I first bought this car, I bought it almost specifically because it was a manual, and the manuals are a dying breed nowadays. Everyone buys automatics, and the ZF 8-speed auto, which is ubiquitous in BMWs, I think also Jaguars, maybe some Audis. It's a brilliant shift, but you lose the interactivity you get with a manual. That's fine on the open road, when you're up and running between villages out here in Oxfordshire. It's a lovely companion to have. But in the morning, it's a pain. Going through some of the local towns and villages here in Oxfordshire, the shift can be not recalcitrant, but not very helpful. It does balk every now and again. Second to third across the gate and up can be a bit obstructive. It's obviously worse when the box is cold. Now, back in the 70s, you call it character. These days, it's just a pain. And when you're constantly having to pump the clutch and stir the gear lever in order to make decent progress, it's too much. That's why the replacement for this car, which is a 5 Series, is going to be an automatic, just because it makes the commute a damn sight easier. So what about this premium branding then? This is an interesting discussion. It's subjective, it depends upon your definition again. this time definition of premium, I should say. How do you define premium? Now, the first thing to state is, in my view, the drive of this car, the look, the feel, the experience of getting down the road is a premium feel. I recently spent some time in a Ford Focus, a rented vehicle from Edinburgh Airport, and it was a lovely little car actually, but you could really tell the difference in terms of engineering. It seemed a little bit noisier, didn't seem quite as happy on the road over some of the broken surfaces north of Dundee. This, on the other hand, is clearly premium in terms of the engineering depth that the car has. You are paying for that experience of the BMW engineers, but they are everywhere, the 3 Series, and indeed the 5 Series, the 2 Series models nowadays. And the question to ask is the proliferation, great road surface here, is the proliferation of BMW badging going to hurt the brand as time moves on? I don't know. It deserves its premium branding just through the effectiveness of the drive. As I mentioned, it's a great car to drive. So in that regard, it is premium. But in terms of kind of driveway appeal, where the car is saying something to your neighbours, if that kind of thing's important to you, that intrinsic something, in my view, it's kind of on the wane, because the proliferation of the badge is increasing. And yes, time will tell whether that proves to be a problem or not. One other comment on the refinement, and this is a well-timed green light, because you can hear it now. That diesel thrum. It is rather raucous. Now in the morning it's obviously a damn sight worse, as most diesels are. It can make, just avoid the cyclist here, nice hat, it can make quite a racket. When you're cruising 70 to 80 miles an hour on the motorways, it calms down. It's pretty quiet actually. The general wind noise kind of mutes the engine's input into proceedings. But yeah, pulling away from a junction like that, it's not very pleasant on the ears. It appeals to the wallet, but not the ears. Put it that way. It's a very effective unit, of course. This is the old N47, as I mentioned earlier. My new 5 Series is going to run the B47, and in that car, I think possibly also because of the size of the vehicle, extra sound deadening, it's a lot quieter, a lot more refined. In this, it does tend to stand out for all the wrong reasons, the engine. BMW might say, I suppose it adds to the sporty feeling, but I doubt it. So if, in my opinion, it's not a sports saloon, what is it? Well, it's a premium family car, pure and simple. It's got the space for 4/5 adults, as I mentioned earlier. A big boot. We can easily fit 2.5 suitcases in the boot, so 2 big suitcases and 4 or 5 squashy bags, something like that. As I mentioned, it's relatively inexpensive to run, and it's very stylish. This Melbourne red colour is a gorgeous paint colour when it's clean. On an overcast day like today, with a bit of dust on the bodywork, it does dull the effect somewhat, but on a clear sunny day, it really stands out actually. And even now I get a few comments on "nice car, mate" from people on garage forecourts and so on. Plus the wheels, when the silver effect on the polished alloys, when they're clean, that contrasts with the black paint and the darkened windows to make it look quite an attractive car. So yeah, premium, smart look and feel as a family saloon car. It's ideal. Just don't expect it to be a sports saloon. In terms of tech then, and specifications and so on, you can get most things nowadays in the BMW 3 Series. It used to be the case that only the 5s and the 7s offered such things as head-up displays and so on. This one has reversing camera, which has got good definition, guidance lines, obstacle markings and so on. It's actually quite helpful. Even though the car's not very big, you do tend to rely upon it. And I notice cars that I drive that don't have it fitted, or which doesn't have it fitted, if that makes sense. This one's also got the Pro navigation system with the widescreen iDrive display. It's got the 3D topographical view on the maps, which I think is a lovely feature. And the BMW nav nowadays is actually a very effective system. Gone are the days where you had to have a TomTom stuck it to the windscreen because the standard nav wasn't very effective. This is a brilliant system, in my opinion. Really adds to the car. We've also got Bluetooth audio streaming that comes with the Pro Nav pack, a black panel display in the dashboard. I tend to sit quite low when I'm driving, so my seat's now on the lowest setting and it's set for my 6-foot frame. And it's worth pointing out that the sat-nav instructions are also displayed on the lower portion, the black panel display in the instrument cluster. But I have to do this in order to read them because I'm sitting quite low. That's partly the reason why my new 5 Series also has a head-up display, so I can see the sat-nav without having to crane my neck forward. Another piece of tech this car has, which, along with things like heated seats and sat-nav, I will now never be able to buy a car without it, is the adaptive headlights. Now these are Xenons. You can have LEDs nowadays, of course, which are 10 times better, but the adaptive function is a wonderful piece of technology. It has the cornering function, of course, so the lights follow, in quotes, the car into the bend. It rotates the light unit on the direction of travel, but it also has this function where it dips and main beams, so to speak, the headlights to avoid dazzling oncoming traffic. And it does what I call split the beam when you're traveling behind a car on a dark night. So the offside and the near side will be illuminated by the main beam units, but the car in front exists in a pool of inky blackness. It's fascinating technology. It makes driving on a dark night in an unfamiliar place a very relaxing experience because you can just leave the car to its own devices, safe in the knowledge that when you need main beam, it'll be there automatically. I've ran this particular F33 series for nearly 3 years and I've enjoyed every minute of it. But being honest, I wouldn't buy another one. It's a good car, but it's at least 60 horsepower or so short in this 320d guise of being a great BMW. There always seems to be a little something lacking from the drive. I suspect, though, amongst those who buy these cars, that isn't really the point, and that the badge appeal more than makes up for the deficit. And ultimately, that's the success story that modern BMW is based on. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the film, and we'll see you next time. Cheers!